Good evening, everybody. I want to welcome you here to Prog Monster. We're just going to lower this down a bit here. My name is Murph. I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So we're here to do an episode of Favorites on Wednesday night. Now, this will be a little bit late just because it was a long day and I came home and sat down for a minute. Next thing I know, it's late. Anyways, I had got this all together, which was good. Got my stuff all stacked here. So the episode we're going to do today is my 10 favorite, I guess if we call this, my 10 favorite albums that were the final albums by these musicians. Now, this is kind of, just by its very nature, difficult to do because we never know 100% if that's the final album by a band. You know, some bands it's easy enough to know they've disbanded, they haven't produced albums in years, and you figure that they're never going to produce one again. That's pretty standard issue. But there are some that have said that they're finished and then they do another one. You know, there's 2 or 3 of these in here that it could be their last album, but it might not be. And there are some here that I decided not to include. Simply for that reason. Like, I was going to include the Styx album on this list, but I recently found out that they're going to be putting out another studio album in May, which is great. I want that. That's exactly what I want. And if it's anything close to the last one, it'll be a greater album. You know, their last couple of albums have been fantastic, and I suspect that this one will not be much different. At least I'm hoping it won't be. So I didn't include them because I know they're doing that. And then there's a few bands who they haven't put out albums for a few years, 4 or 5 years, but you figure that they're still pretty young bands or fairly new bands, fairly new like within 10 years or 20 years. So you figure they probably might do another one. There's some in here where they only did the kind of one-off type album, so they had a great album, but it's the only one they produced, so you can't really put that down as their last album. So I decided to do away with all those. There may be a few others that I decided not to do for various reasons, but I picked 10 out here that I feel are a good representation of my top 10 favorite final albums. There may be 1 or 2 that I decided not to include here that could have been included here. I apologize if it turns out that I missed them for whatever reason. But anyways, I put these in the order that I like them, and they're the final albums. Each of these are the final albums by these bands. They could be the final album period, but, some of these bands you never know, right? So the first one on this list, there was a couple that I didn't include because the album is just too recently released. The Jethro Tull album comes to mind. It's only been recently released in the last week or two, so pretty hard to put it in a top 10 of all time when it's only been, I haven't even listened to it more than twice, right? So there was that reason too. Okay, so on with this because it's getting on. The first one we're going to talk about, and it's just brief. We're not long conversations here. This is a top 10 list. So number 10 is going to be the Rolling Stones' Hackney Diamonds, which was released, I believe, 2 years ago. Is it 2? Is it 2 now? 2023? I believe it was released. It does not say, which isn't really unusual. They don't normally do that anymore. Oh, no, here it is, 223. I think it's towards the end of 2023. Hadn't released an album in a very long time. Most people figured they were done, weren't going to produce another album, and then they put this out, which is, I think, a strong album. This is a strong album. There's a lot of good stuff on here. Maybe one of their best albums in the past couple, maybe you might even be able to go back to the 80s to find an album as good as this, maybe even before that, maybe in the 70s. But this is a good, solid album. So if this ends up being their final album, it's got to be in the top 10. They may do another one, though. You do not know, right? But I think this might be their final album, so I included it here as my number 10. Next up, another band that I thought was pretty much done. Didn't think they would ever go back, and they've done this one. And I'm gonna assume this would be their final album. But now I'm hearing that they're going to play another concert. So if the concert is a big sellout, and I'm sure it will be, they may do another album. Black Sabbath, 13. So this came out, of course, 2013. Figured this would be their final album. It's a good, solid Black Sabbath album. It's got a lot of that kind of first album feel to it. Slow, melodic, heavy, doomy. Ozzy's voice sounds really good on this. Of course, a lot of this stuff has been, fed through the synthesizer, I guess you might want to call it. But still, really solid album. And I'm figuring this will be their final one, so it's going to be my ninth on my pick. But then again, with them doing that concert and Bill Ward actually joining them, so you have all four of the original members, they may decide to do another album. You never know. Maybe they won't tour again because they're all pushing it. But definitely they could possibly do an album. But for at this point in time, 13 is going to be my number 9. Number 8, of course, I am 100% sure this band will not produce another album. This is my 8th on the list. This album is now, it's 13 years in the past now. I'm sure it's the final one. I'll be very surprised if it isn't. Clockwork Angels by Rush. This album did not do well with me when it first came out. It took me a very long time, years actually, probably almost 10 years before I really took to this album. Then I took to it in a big way. But absolute killer album. I really find it kind of neat too, the way they did the 9/12 here, which is actually, if you do the 24-hour clock, this would be 21/12, right? So kind of neat that they did that for their final album. And I think the album is strong now. Still kind of vocals are not so great, and the production sounds at times a little bit murky, but overall I think it's a good album, so it's got to be here, number 8. Number 7, an album that was just recently came out of my playlist. It's the final album of this band thus far, but it's only been 5 years. There's a chance they will probably do another album. In fact, I'm almost certain they will, but their albums come out so far apart that it's hard to say whether they will. They're now, they've been around for a long time now. Wobbler, and this is their Dwellers of the Deep album. I included this here because I'm not 100% sure that they're going to come back with another album. It could happen. I hope it happens. I hope they come back with many albums, but for now I'm going to put them on the list as my number 7. Number 6, I'm sure this band will not produce another album, which is an absolute terrible thing. They put out 5 of the best rock albums in history. The Police, this is their final one. Synchronicity, this is an absolute killer album. All 5 of their albums are really good. This is the final one. Can't imagine anybody putting out this as their final album and just packing it in. Just seems weird. So number 6, The Police, Synchronicity. Number 5, we're getting the top 5. This album is currently in my playlist. There are 3 albums put out by this band. It took them 30 years to put the 3 albums out. They put them all fairly close together, and they may never put another album out again. This is a one-time project that could be completely done. I'm going to assume that might be the case, because if it took them 30 years to put these out, I hope they don't take them another 30 years to put 3 more out, but it could happen. And this is The Chronicles of Father Robin, their album, The Songs and Tales of Ewa. This is book 3, The Magical Chronicles. Great album, love it. So it's their final album at this point, and that comes in at number 5. Number 4, I'm sure this is the final album by this band. Am I wrong? Maybe. They still sometimes tour and do stuff. I don't know that they've put out another album. I think this is the final one. Thin Lizzy's Thunder and Lightning. It's the heaviest of all their albums, I believe. It's got a lot of really good stuff on it. John Sykes is on it as well. So it's really, really a strong finish for this band, number 4. Number 3, this album came out, I believe, last year. I think it was last year. Yes, last year. It was one of my big albums for the year. It's a very strong album. For them, if they finish on this album, it'd be a fantastic finish. Invincible Shield by Judas Priest, their third, their final album released, and they've now said they're not probably going to tour anymore, so maybe they won't make any albums anymore either. But making albums and touring is a different thing, because in their case, their guitarist Glenn Tipton has Parkinson's. I think it's Parkinson's disease, and he can't tour with them anymore. But he has been able to play on the album, so they may do another one and have him again. But I'm going to say that that's probably their last album. This band, I'm sure, is done. They said they're done. They're not touring anymore. They're not doing anything anymore. They've effectively retired. And I'm just trying to pick this piece of tape off here, wherever that came from. I'm not sure. Pull it right off there. Anyways, The Who's self-titled final album from 2018. At least I think it was 2018. Pretty sure it was. Doesn't say, but I'm pretty sure it was. This is one of my favorite Who albums, maybe in the top 3 now. Love this album. As soon as I decided to do this, I knew this album would be on the list. It's going to come here at number 2. And the final one is not going to be a surprise, really, to anybody. I love this album. I think it's their best album. I still listen to it. It was in my playlist for a very long time. I think it was a great album. I hope they do more. They've said they're not going to tour anymore, but such a crystal clear sounding album too. Uriah Heep's Chaos in Color, number 1, had to be on this list. So there you have it. That's my top 10 list of final albums by a band. Uriah Heep, number 1, Chaos in Color. Number 2, The Who's self-titled final album. Number 3, Invincible Shield by Judas Priest. Number 4, Thin Lizzy's Thunder and Lightning. Number 5, The Chronicles of Father Robin, the Song and Tales of Iowa, Book 3, Magical Chronicles. So that was so long, I forgot what number I was at. 5. Number 6, The Police's Synchronicity. Number 7, Dwellers of the Deep by the Wobbler. Number 8, Rush's, I was about to say 2112. Rush's, threw me right for a loop. Clockwork Angels. Just threw me right off the bus there. Number 9, Black Sabbath's 13. And number 10, final, not the least, but a good album, Hackney Diamonds by Rolling Stones. Those could all be the final albums, but, next year 3 or 4 of these bands might prove me completely wrong. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed that episode. It was kind of fun to put together. I'm sorry it's a little bit late, and I'm starving, so I got to go eat, and might be losing my mind a bit here too. Anyways, please hit the like and subscribe. That's much appreciated. And if you want, you can leave any of your comments, or if you want to put your own 10 that fit this category, whatever limitations you decide to put on it, you can do that in the comments section below. And we will see you next Wednesday for another episode of Favorites. Take care. Have yourself a good evening. Goodbye.